Good morning, guys. I am excited to talk to you about the integumentary system today. The integumentary system sounds really crazy and complex, but really this is just our skin. The largest organ of the body is our skin, and our skin actually serves a lot of purposes, and we're going to talk about it today. So we're going to jump right in. The integumentary system includes our skin, but it also includes several other really important parts of the body. It includes our hair. It includes our nails, right? Our fingernails. It includes sweat glands, which serve a couple of purposes that we're going to talk about in a minute. And it includes oil glands, because we have oils on the surface of our skin to help us as well. So we're going to talk about the 5 main jobs that the integumentary system serves for us. So the first, and probably one of the most important, is that it's a physical barrier, right? It protects us by creating a physical barrier between our body and the world outside, right? It's like a shield, right? So we're going to put a diagram in each box to kind of help us remember, because you guys know I think pictures tied to words help us remember them better. So I think of like a shield, like Captain America style. So I know you guys are impressed by my artistic skill. And we can even add some little red in here. Okay, so it is like a shield. It protects us, right? Otherwise, first of all, we would lose way too much water all the time, because that shield helps us from losing the water. Remember, our bodies are like 70% water, so it helps protect us from the outside world. Every time we bumped something, it would be very, very painful, because it would be live skin that was being touched. So the protection factor is really big when we're talking about the integumentary system. The second thing that is very important is maintaining temperature. Now, as you guys know, we are warm-blooded. Our body maintains a specific temperature for us, right? Unlike things like reptiles, which have to absorb energy from their surroundings to get body heat, we keep our body warm, and that's why we have to eat a lot more often than reptiles, right? Because we have to have enough energy to keep our body temperature up. When we can't maintain body temperature, that's when things go wrong, right? We can have big problems. But our body has lots of fail-safes to protect our body temperature from getting too high or too low. Now, when we get cold, you might have noticed that you get chill bumps, right? And this is because tiny muscles in the skin contract, and that forms chill bumps. Okay, now there's something else that happens as well besides chill bumps. Now, we have blood vessels that run. We're going to talk about the structures in our skin in just a second, but those chill bumps are one part, but there's also blood vessels. And I'm going to switch colors so we know that it's something different. Blood vessels in our body either get larger to help us cool off, kind of like turning on a fan, right? It's trying to move more heat away from the body. If we're too hot, it's going to try to move some heat away from our body, right? Cool us down. But if we're cold, they're going to contract. They get smaller to keep more body heat towards the body. And this is what happens when people get frostbite, right? If you've ever seen a movie or a documentary where someone gets frostbite, that's because their extremities, their fingers, right, are the farthest away from the middle of their body. So that blood is going towards the middle of their body to keep their heart pumping, to keep their lungs working. And so if too much blood isn't flowing, then it can't maintain body heat in that area, and that's when that tissue can die very quickly if it's not getting that oxygen that it needs from good blood. So when I think of this, I think of this system as kind of like a fan, right? It's either turning on or turning off a fan. So it makes me think of, like, you know, one of those, you guys know I'm not an artist, but you know, can cool you off when you need it, right? Now, one factor that we don't really think about our skin doing as much, oh, let me add this in. They contract to keep us warm. So the next factor we're going to talk about is eliminating waste. Now, we don't really think about waste elimination as part of what our integumentary system, our skin system, does, but there are certain things that our sweat disposes of that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. So sweat is very important because those sweat glands can dispose of waste materials that would otherwise build up and harm us. And this is where we get that idea of sweating out toxins, right? So some things our body needs to sweat out. We can't get rid of it with any other way. So we're going to sweat. Sweat is a good thing, and your PE teachers will, I'm sure, tell you that that is true. These are my little sweat drops. You guys see my little sweat running down my cheeks? Okay, so sweating is important not just to help us regulate our body temperature like we just talked about, but it's also important for being able to eliminate waste products. Now, gathering information is another way that our body helps us through the integumentary system. Nerve endings in your skin help gather information. They connect to your brain and in your brain can process that information and convert it into a response. This is how we respond to change. Okay, so this is in our brain. So I'm going to draw my little stick person. You guys know I'm good at stick people. And then I'm going to draw his little wrinkly brain. Yeah, it's got a little brain stem. So it happens when our skin communicates with our brain so that we can respond to change. This helps us take in information about how hot or cold something is, if something is prickly or smooth, if something is sticky or wet. All of those nerve endings are taking in that information and sending it to our brain so that we can make decisions about our environment. Okay? Now, this last one might be a little bit of a new one as well. Your skin is responsible for producing vitamin D in the body, and vitamin D is used to help our bodies absorb calcium. Why would we need to absorb calcium? Well, calcium is what makes our bones hard. So we need to be able to absorb calcium in order to keep our bones strong. So some specialized cells in the skin make vitamin D, and they make vitamin D in the presence of sunlight. They use sunlight to make vitamin D. This helps us absorb calcium. And obviously we're going to have a sunshine because that is where we get that energy from for our skin to make that vitamin D. Okay. Now we're going to look down here at our diagram. I'm going to color code this diagram. If you are completing the digital version of the notes, you won't need to do that. But if you're doing the paper version, there is a little key over here, and we're going to kind of color code it to help you guys see the different parts. The very first part that we're going to talk about is the very top layer of skin. It's the layer that you see right now on my hand or your hand. This is the epidermis. And epi is a word part that means above, right? So epi is the top layer. So epidermis is responsible for protection for the most part. This layer is mostly made up of dead skin cells. It is the outer layer of skin, and it is made of mostly dead skin cells. This layer right here is the part where there are live cells, which is why sometimes you can scratch yourself, right? And it doesn't even hurt because it's all dead, right? And then above it, all of these layers and layers on top are those dead skin cells. And we lose these all the time, right? You lose skin cells constantly. In fact, most dust particles in your house are made up of dead skin cells. Ew, it's kind of gross to think about, okay? But this is important because if these were all live cells, every time something brushed up against you or touched your skin, it would be so painful because those cells would be exposed. Those live cells would be exposed. This is kind of like when you get like a rug burn, right? And it takes off that top layer of skin. It doesn't really bleed, but it takes off that top layer of skin and makes it feel really raw. That's the epidermis protecting your skin. Okay? All right. The next layer we're going to talk about is the dermis. And derm is a word part that means skin. And this is where the kind of meat and potatoes of the integumentary system comes from. This is the second layer. It's the lower layer of the skin. And it is where all the stuff happens. It has blood vessels, nerves, glands. This is where all of the stuff is going on, okay? So it has a lot of those parts that we were talking about up here in the functional part that help maintain that degree of protection and body temperature regulation and all that good stuff, okay? So we're going to shade it pink because it is alive. It is helping us stay protected. It's insulating our glands. It is producing vitamin D with those specific cells that help us. You may have heard of melanocytes, right? Melanin, what makes our skin different colors, and that reacts with sunlight to help protect us from getting a sunburn, which is why if you go out a little bit and at a time your skin gets a little darker maybe because those melanocytes are starting to produce more melanin, which is a pigment in our skin. Some people produce a lot of melanin and some people don't produce very much at all. That's what gives us different shades of skin. One little pigment. Okay, so that dermis is protecting all of this stuff, right? It's got a lot of jobs. So let's look at the next one on the list. Number 3 is down here, and this is a layer of, does anybody know? It's a layer of fat. This is a layer of fat. This layer is really important because it insulates our bodies. Okay? It gives us a little cushion, right? It's kind of like wearing a coat, even when we don't have a coat on. Because remember, we talked about maintaining temperature is a big job of the integumentary system. And so if we're going to maintain that temperature, we need to make sure that we have some insulation, right, to help us maintain that temperature. So this fat layer down here is all these kind of bubbles, just like when we looked at the chicken wing. It's like a yellowy, almost looks like scrambled eggs, is what that fat layer looks like. So it's kind of bubbly down here at the bottom. Fat also helps to cushion you from injuries because, you know, you fall sometimes, or you hurt yourself, or you bump up against something, and that fat layer right there helps to protect you from that. Okay? All right, the next one we're going to talk about is hair, right? We are mammals, so we have hair that grows all over our bodies. And hair is important because it helps to insulate the body when they are erect. And erect just means standing up, right? So when you get chill bumps, a tiny muscle that's in here, right, it contracts. And when that muscle contracts, it pulls the hair so that they're standing straight up, right? And we're going to color the hair brown so that we can see it. And so that tiny muscle helps to keep us warm. That's why we get chill bumps when we're cold. Okay? Number 5. Now you guys can probably tell already because you can see what's inside that gland, that is a sweat gland. And sweat glands secrete sweat to help us cool off. To help cool the body, secrete sweat. So inside we've got our water. Water is what is secreted. Water, and remember, some waste products. That's why it has kind of a salty taste if you've ever tasted your sweat because you were sweating a lot and it was hot outside and it ran down your face into your mouth. That sweat has some stuff in it. It's not just pure water, and that's that waste product that our body is trying to get rid of. All right, number 6. Number 6 are oil glands, and these are important because it's actually very important for your skin to be moisturized, and oil is something that's very moisturizing. So oil glands secrete oil to moisturize skin and hair. And this, just like skin color, is different based on your genetics, right? Some people produce a lot of oil in their glands, and some people don't produce a lot of oil in their glands. And so some people need to use additional things to help keep their skin moisturized. One of the most important things you can do to keep your skin moisturized is drink enough water. And you have no excuses right now to not be drinking enough water because you are home all day. Okay, so that oil, do you see how it comes out in the follicle, right around where the hair is? And follicle is what we call this area right here. This is the hair follicle, and that's what stimulates the growth of the hair. When you ladies especially pluck your eyebrows or anything else, this does a little bit of damage every time to that hair follicle, which is why over time when you pluck or remove hair from the root enough, it does enough damage that that hair doesn't grow anymore. Just a random interesting fact for you for today. All right, two more. I know this video is longer than normal, but I wanted to help you guys understand as much as possible. All right, number 7. This is a nerve, and these are extremely important. These are thin nerve strands that collect information. This is how we're able to adapt to our environment, right? This is how we're able to respond to changes. And we have 2 different types of nerve endings in our skin. We have these nerve endings that go all the way to the very base of that epidermal layer, right? And then over here we have these, they're called deep nerves, and they're in the dermis layer, right, the live layer. And this is where, like, if somebody's like scratching your back, or a little spider runs across your hand, these ones, the ones close to the surface of the skin, are the ones that take in those kinds of feelings. If somebody wants to give you a back rub, these nerves are the ones that help you feel that release of tension that way, right? And last but not least, because they're very important, we have tiny, tiny blood vessels. Now, there are some blood vessels, that very tiny ones, that go thinly up into the dermal layer, because we have to have skin blood supply to that area of the skin as well. But the larger blood vessels are down here in this fat layer, because that fat protects them from damage. And you can see that there's a blood supply to the hair follicle to help it grow right there. And that blood supplies all the oxygen and nutrients that your body needs to grow. Blood is our life source. Without blood flow, we do not survive very long at all. So blood vessels are going to bring oxygen and nutrients to those cells. Okay, so there we have it. I hope that helps you guys get your notes done and have a better understanding of how your skin works to protect you, to maintain your body temperature, to eliminate waste products, to gather information about your surroundings, and to produce vitamin D to help you guys go through your life. So if you need to watch this again, I know it was enthralling, you can feel free to watch it again. If not, I hope you guys have a very great week.